like week 5 or 6 of this now, depending on where you are. And it's been interesting to kind of have everybody walk through and see the different stages of they're happy one day, and then they're frustrated the next day, and then they're sad the next day. Give you a little bit of motivation. Okay, so first things first, I want to do something a little different for gratitude, because I know we're all thankful for so many things. And, you know, when you start with gratitude, it gets your head in such a great space. So I want to do something different. I want you to type your biggest win from the week so far in the chat box. And it could be something like super simple, or it could be a huge win. So any win that you've had, type that in the chat box. And we can kind of see each other's and encourage everybody together. And actually, I need to think of mine while you guys are thinking of yours too. So last week we talked about creating your nourishment centers. And also, I'd love for you guys to share. You can either unmute and share, or you can type in the chat box. But did any of you create nourishment centers on your cell phone, or did you put together? Did you like that exercise? Did you do it? And for those of you who weren't on last week, nourishment centers are something that John Maxwell taught me, and he is huge. He's huge about nourishment centers, and it's basically you create things on your phone that take you to, when you get in a not so great mind space, it takes you back into that successful, that good headspace. Meaning, it may be quotes, it may be scripture, it may be a photo album, it may be a playlist on your music. And so then when you get in a not great headspace, you can go to those nourishment centers, and it can kind of ground you and bring you back to a really good headspace. I actually added some new music to my nourishment center playlist this week. And I'm happy to share if anybody wants to know what they are. And then, oh, good, Jenny created a playlist. Oh yeah, we talked about that. Awesome. That is so awesome. I love that. Perfect. And then we were going to listen to the Craig Groeschel podcast, Keeping It Real. And then always, I'm encouraging you guys to send 5 handwritten note cards to people in your world every single week, because there's nothing like getting or receiving a handwritten note card. And also, it just makes you feel good when you send one and you're touching somebody else's life in a big way. Oh, that's a great one. Cherry tree is in full bloom. Troy, I love that. Great start to spring. That's such a great one. So keeping it real. Did anybody get a chance to listen to this podcast? And if so, any ahas, thoughts, feedback on it? Craig Groeschel is one of my very favorite leaders. If you've never listened to his podcast, it's called the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast, and it's phenomenal. You don't have to be in a leadership role to listen to it and get a ton of good value from it. He's just amazing. So did anybody listen to Keeping It Real? I think this is very important right now with where we're at, kind of everything that's going on. Yes. Oh, that's a big one. Okay, let's see. I'll just read them real quick. Amy, follow a leader that is real instead of a leader that is always right. Yep, that's one of my favorite quotes ever. People connect with you in your weaknesses. This is a huge one. I talk and teach about that a lot because I think he says, I have it on the next page, but I think he says, here we go. And by the way, I'm going to share this with you guys too in the Facebook group. But people admire you for your strengths, but they connect with you through your weaknesses. And that could not be more true. People love to see people succeed and see what their strengths are. But when you expose a weakness, people really, really connect with you. Teresa Kinney, my aha is culture happens on purpose. You have to work to create the culture. Absolutely. Yes. Transparency is not all or nothing. As a leader, always tell the truth. Telling the truth means that what you say is true, but it doesn't mean that everything that is true needs to be said. Yes, that is a big one. Let's see, Rochelle loved it. A team is not a group of people who work together. It's a group of people who trust each other. Yes, 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 absolutely. A team is a group that trusts each other. Abby, yes, love that. Jen, stop tolerating and start creating. That's a huge one. Oh, Barb Gale, awesome. I took 3 pages of notes on Craig. Yeah, Craig is awesome. So here's a little tip for you guys. If you go to his podcast, if you go to his website and you find the podcast, you can actually download this little like worksheet. And so he has some of his notes and all the quotes that are mentioned and all that on there. So we'll post this in the Facebook group for you guys. And I would encourage you to just kind of keep listening through his and finding some good nuggets in there. Oh, Amy, that's a great one too. Purpose isn't clear if you aren't unified. That is such a good one. Hey, Terrell. Oh my goodness. I love that you're on. Transparency is a trust builder. Yep, absolutely. Your weaknesses make you real to people. Love that quote. Yeah, that's a big one, TJ. Really, really big one. So I love that you guys listened to that. And so here's what I want to get into next, and you're probably going to need a pen and paper. And this is going to be, I know we were going to talk about the 13 things mentally strong people do. However, John Maxwell threw a wrench in my plans for this week, and I just really wanted to give this to you guys first. So this is going to be 2 parts because it's kind of long. So we're going to do half of the lessons today and half next Wednesday. So you got to come back next Wednesday so you can get the second half. But we actually had John Maxwell on a leadership Zoom on Monday of this week for some of the Keller Williams leaders that we have in Florida and Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And I've been super blessed to have gotten to know John as a friend and go on a couple of trips with John and be mentored by him. And he's just, you guys know him, hands down, like the most amazing person that I've ever met. I mean, there's just no words that can really honestly describe him. So he gave us some new lessons that I've never heard him talk about on Monday before. And so that's what I want to share with you guys. And I hope that you love it as much as I did. And it's kind of a lot. So I'll go fast and then you can take notes. So the lesson that he put together on Monday is called putting things behind you versus putting things before you. And so one of the things that John talked about is, we're in a crisis right now. I guess a lot of people would still say that we are. And a crisis always distracts people. There's nothing that really a crisis can't distract you from, right? It distracts you. And so John uses the words a lot, traction versus distraction, because when you're distracted, you're moving away from something. But when you have traction, you're moving towards something. And so John he said that his dad, who by the way is 98 years old, and I can't imagine how cool he is from the stories that John always tells us about his dad. But he said that one thing his dad always told him is, John, you need to put it before you. Write everything down and put it before you. Put it in front of you so that you see it all the time, so that you see it every single day. And so John said he really felt like that God was kind of telling him to teach this lesson about putting things behind you versus putting things before you. And so here's what he said. When you put something behind you, it'll shrink, right? When you put something before you, it will expand. And many of you have heard the quote, what you focus on expands, right? And so when you put it before you, then you put it out in front of you so that you can see it and it'll expand. But here's the thing, this is a choice. We have the choice to put things behind us or to put things before us. And so John talks a lot about the dominant emotion in you will win every single time. And so if your mindset is in a place of you not being able to make the choice to put something before you, and that your stronger emotion is to put it behind you, that's going to win every single time. And I love the quote, if you chase 2 rabbits, how many will you catch? And the answer is none, because you can't focus on 2 things at one time. So you really can't focus on putting stuff behind you and before you. You have to make a choice to do one or the other. And so this is where he got into the 9 lessons around this. And so we're going to go through a couple of them today. So lesson number 1, put behind you what you can't do and put before you what you can do. And here's the deal with this one. If you don't do this, you will freeze. You will be stuck in a frozen, paralyzed world, because it's very easy for us to focus on the things that we can't do. But what we got to think about is we have to put those things behind us. We have to focus on what we can do, and we have to put those things before us. And usually what that means is focusing on action. And John said, when you know who you are and what you want, you begin to move, and then you attract the resources to you. And that's so important, because a lot of times people will say, I just feel like I don't have what I need to be able to get into action. Well, the thing is that once you just get into action, then you're going to attract those things. You're going to attract those resources to you. So it's getting into action and focusing on what you can do. Put before you what you can do. John gave 2 examples that I thought were great, and I'm sure everybody's living the puzzle world right now. If you can find one or buy one somewhere. But John said that while they've been quarantined, his family has been focusing on completing 1,000-piece puzzles. And he said that the great thing that he loves about the puzzle is he said that he doesn't actually love to put the puzzles together. So he said he lets all of his grandkids and his kids and his family, they put the puzzles together. And John said that he's the person that, I don't have one in front of me, but he's the one that holds up the cover of the box, right? And the reason that you hold up the cover of the box is for what? It's so that you can see where you're going, right? It's so that you can see what you can do. You look at the cover, and then you go back to your puzzle pieces, and then you look at the cover again. And so he said the reason that we need to think about that as a good visual is because when we put that before us, we see what we can do, and then that's what gets us into action to be able to complete those things. He also, I've heard him tell the story a ton of times. He said if there's five frogs on a log and 4 decide to jump off, how many are left? And the answer is you don't really know, because just because you decided to do something doesn't mean that you actually did it. And I just think that is such a good thing to remember. I don't know how many of you guys can relate to that, but when you, just because sometimes I decide to do something doesn't mean that I end up doing it, right? So the first one is put behind you what you can't do and put before you what you can do. Number 2 is put behind you your opportunities and put behind you your problems and put before you your opportunities. So here's the thing about these. They will always come together. It's just like people say that you can never separate success and failure. You can't have success without failure. And I know tons of you on this call are super successful people. And I'm 99% sure, I'm 100% sure all of you would say that you've had failures along the way, right? So you can't separate success and failure. And with that, you cannot separate problems and opportunities. One of John Maxwell's favorite quotes is this Albert Einstein quote, and it's in the middle of difficulty in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And John will always say, where does he say it lies? And we're like, in the middle. So remember, in the middle of your problems, that's where you can find the opportunity of what is to come and what can be. He says that the yes is always behind the no. And so if you think about it like that, to create an opportunity, you have to get through your problems. And you're going to hear no a lot of times, but the yes is always behind the no. One thing that he talked about that I actually don't have on this slide is that during a crisis can actually quickly divide people. And it's kind of sad, but it's just the reality, because you can constantly feel like you're running into dead ends or detours. But here's what John said. If you're feeling like that, and you're feeling like you're running into dead ends, or you're feeling like you're getting put on a detour, you're going a different direction, he said, observe the route. Look for the opportunity. Go slow during that time, even if it sucks and you feel like, oh, this is not the spot that I want to be in. He said, don't be disgusted with the detour. Look for the opportunity and observe what's around you, because the yes is always, always behind the no. And so then to get to an opportunity, you have to get through problems. He talked a lot about worrying on this one, because I think it's easy for us to slip into like a worrying mindset when we're focused on our problems and not our opportunities. And so John said, worrying is like fertilizing weeds in the garden. And I know some of you, I am not a gardener, but I know some of you on the call are. And that just kind of made me laugh. Worrying is like fertilizing weeds in the garden. I mean, why do we really do it? I know sometimes we kind of think that we can't help it. Or we'll, I actually have even said before, my family is kind of a worrying family. Like, I feel like it's in our genes. So that just made me laugh, and I love that one. Worrying is like fertilizing weeds in the garden. So put behind you your problems and put before you your opportunities. Number 3 is, and this is for anybody that's in business right now. So no matter what business you're in, this can relate to you. Put behind you the sale and put before you adding value. And he got really specific with this one, because no matter what world of business you are in right now, and I know we have a ton of different people in different businesses on this call, if you're focused on the sale, this might not come out the way that you want it to. And so he said, ask yourself these 2 questions to keep this one really true. Number 1, what do you want other people to think about you and your business and say about you on the other side of this coronavirus, on the other side of COVID-19? And then question number 2 is, what do they say about you? What do they actually say about you? And he said that there's a huge gap between those 2. For a lot of people in the business world, what they want their clients to think about them and say about them versus what they actually do, there's a big gap between that. And so the great thing that I love about this is John said, the greatest time to close the gap between those 2 questions is during a crisis. And I don't know about you guys, and this is obviously a horrific time and a lot of sickness and job losses and all of those things. And I am choosing to look for the opportunities through this and to just add value. And so for me, it's been so much easier to actually make calls and to do the lead gen and the activities that I need to do for my businesses, because I truly genuinely care about the people and I want to know if they're okay and what do they need and is there anything that we can help them with, versus just cold calling to see if somebody wants to buy or sell a house. And so I think there's a big gap between these 2, but you can close the gap during a crisis. And he also talked about this he told a story of, John said he's been doing the same thing. He's been calling and writing to just everybody that he knows and everybody that's in his organizations. And he said that he actually called one person that works in one of the John Maxwell organizations. And John did not know this, but they shared with him that they were battling cancer. And they actually have been pre-COVID-19, and she hadn't really told a lot of people about it. And now she's really struggling because obviously she's receiving treatment and she can't leave her house just because she's high risk. And so John said he had no clue about that before he called her. And so he said that he just told her, if it's okay with you when we hang up, I want to text you a prayer and I want you to pray it every single day. And so he said he sent her Psalm 112. And he said that he put a reminder in his phone that he wanted to check back in with her every couple of days. And so he said he's just been checking back in with her saying, did you read Psalm 112 today? Did you read Psalm 112 today? What are you thinking of Psalm 112? Like he said, just keep reading it over and over and over. And he said that over I think the last 10 or so days, that she reached back out to him and said, your one phone call and you sending me that has made the hugest difference in my mindset and just how I'm living. And so I just think about that. And then he told us to ask the question to ourselves, do I want fans or friends? And here's the deal. Most of you would choose friends. And if you choose friends, then you need to walk slowly through the crowds. And if you have ever heard John Maxwell speak or talk, he is so intentional about walking slowly through the crowds. So much so that when he speaks in big arenas, normally they take you through the back, whatever is back behind the stage. And sometimes he goes through the kitchen and all that stuff. And he has told us so many stories of blessings that he has received and been able to give because he's walked slowly through the crowds. And he walks through the kitchen and asks them how they're doing and just builds relationships with them. Because he said that if you choose friends, remember that friends always want these things. They always want someone that's kind, attentive, and that listens to them. And so, that can just be a real eye-opener. If you want that, are you being that person? Are you putting that out there? So put behind you the sale and put before you adding value. Number 4, this is a struggle for me. I'm going to be a little honest because I am very visionary, future based. And so when he very first said this, I was like, that's kind of I kind of struggled with it for a minute. But you kind of have to marinate on this one. So lesson number 4, put behind you the future and put before you today. And this was just a really, really, really good one because here's what he said. There's a difference between being uncertain and unclear. Okay. So uncertain is we don't know. We don't know. And honestly, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. However, unclear is just someone not dealing with the clarity. And so he said, today's the only thing that we have. And so you have to really focus on, I love when he says this, if you do today right, the odds of having a better tomorrow are greater. Because if you don't do today right, then what are you doing tomorrow? You're repairing today, the yesterday. And so he always asks the question, are you preparing or are you repairing? And I just think that's something so great to think about. And here's a lesson that I've learned from John Forever. When you're preparing, you're taking care of today. When you're repairing, you're tomorrow repairing yesterday. And then this is the biggest thing. I put this down here. He said, when you encourage someone to continue, you get them to focus on now and today. So if you have people around you that you're encouraging, get them to focus on the now and the today. Oh, thanks, Troy Fabish, for saying that. Because, you know, when we start to focus on the future, sometimes that can cause a lot of anxiety. That can cause us to not get in a good headspace. And he always gives this example, and I just think this is such a great example. But think about AA or NA. The focus is today for those people. It's not tomorrow, it's on today, because that's what you have today. And a lot of people, you know, I have several friends who are in AA, and they count the days, right? You focus on the day. Actually, yesterday I was talking to somebody, and they said today is day 28. And I just thought that it goes perfectly with what this lesson that John's talking about, because you take it one day at a time. We have to focus on today. Any thoughts, feedback on that? And I have another quick story. I wish I could go on to this whole thing with you guys, because it's so good. So you have to come back next week and let me finish help telling you the rest of the other ones, because there are 9 total. But so think about putting behind you versus putting before you. And then oh, there we go. I knew I had that to show you guys. So next Wednesday, we'll keep going for time purposes of lessons 5 through 9. But I do have something that actually, first, wait, let me open up. Does anybody want to unmute and just share any thoughts or ahas around that? We have almost 100 people on, so I know surely someone got something good. I'm trying to figure out what's behind Jen McConnell's head, by the way. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Kyra. It looked like it was coming out of your head, Jen. Thoughts, ahas. Okay, so here's starfish. There we go. That's right. Okay, so here's what I want to share with you guys to wrap up today, and I want to read you a story really quickly. And I put my cell phone on here because I want to actually, where is my story? Here we go. This is a story that, gosh, I don't even honestly know where I heard this, but it's been a long time. Like, I had to look back in my notes from 2017 to even find this. But I just felt like this went really well with today. So I want to read you this really quick story, and then I want to tell you why I wanted to share it with you, and then we'll wrap up. It goes like this. If you've ever been to the emergency room, you've experienced the process known as triage. Triage is actually a French word that means to sort out, and it refers to the system that doctors and nurses use to decide which patients are in dire need of help and who isn't. In the Allies' war camp during World War II, the triage supervisor had the unenviable job of labeling the soldiers with one of 3 colored tags. The first was given to patients who were hopeless. They received a red tag. They would be made as comfortable as possible and then allowed to die. The second tag was given to the hopeful. They received a green tag. They were left alone because they would survive immediately without immediate help. The third tag was given to the doubtful, and they received a yellow tag. They were given the most meticulous and immediate treatments that would mean the difference between life and death. A soldier named Lou arrived at one of these makeshift hospitals. He'd been hit by a shrapnel, and one of his legs was completely shattered. He'd also lost a ton of blood. The triage supervisor examined him and tagged him as hopeless with a red tag. The nurse assigned to Lou noticed that he was conscious, and she began talking to him. She soon discovered that they were both from Ohio, and after getting to know his life story, she made the decision to do something that was completely against triage protocol. She risked her entire medical career and reputation. She actually changed Lou's tag to doubtful yellow. After a few hours went by, Lou was given intensive care. He was transported from the front lines to a better medical facility where his life was actually spared. He would spend the rest of his life balancing on one leg, but he was grateful to that nurse for giving him a second chance. And he was actually able to live. So here's why I think that this story is so relevant, and I loved it. I want to share this with you guys this morning is all of us have the ability to give green tags, right? We've all been called to be tag changers. And so I just take this tag as a symbol that as a leader, no matter if you're leading your family or if you're leading a huge organization, you just have to take this time in this journey of this whole coronavirus crisis to be a tag changer. Because I believe, and whether you're a faithful person or not, this is just my belief. I believe that God is the God of bringing dead tags back to life, honestly. And he's done that for so many of us. And so I just feel like we need to go out and do that for other people. We need to be tag changers to other people. And so here's the deal. I have my cell phone number on here because I did an exercise once before and I ordered a box of all these green tags. And so I have one. I'm not at home right now, but I have one that sits on my desk all the time. Some of you I may have given these to before also, and you may have one as well. But I have like hundreds of these green tags. So if you text me your address, I am going to mail you this week a green tag. And honestly, it's nothing fancy. It literally is a green tag with a string on it. I keep mine in my journal. You can keep yours wherever you want, on your desk or in your journal or in your planner or wherever. But honestly, it's such a great visual. If you're a visual person, I'm a very visual person. It's such a great visual of just reminding yourself that we are all tag changers, and we need, oh my gosh, several of you already texted me. That's awesome. We need to go out and we need to be tag changers. So text me your address and I will send you that. And actually, I have to switch the slide. So actually, Heather, would you care to put my cell in the chat box? That way people can have it, because I got to get off the slide. So here's what I want you to do before next Wednesday. Make a list of what you can put before you this week to keep yourself in a good mindset. So what can you do what can you do this week? What can you take action on? What opportunities can you list and put before you? What can you do to add value this week, and how? And how can you focus on today better instead of worrying about the future? And then also, don't forget to send your 5 handwritten note cards. We'll post this in the Facebook group too, because I just really want you guys to stay in a good mindset space this week. Okay, that's all I got. Oh, right on time. I'm like doing really good with my time on these. Normally I'm over on everything. So thank you guys so much. Yes, we will share everything in the Facebook group for sure. Thank you so much. And share with your friends. This is so great. And I just honestly love being able to see you guys. I'm really selfishly, I love this because I'm a huge people person and I'm like missing people so bad. I love everybody. I love my family, and don't get me wrong. And I'm just so used to seeing everybody. I'm like, this is such a bummer. So I love getting to see you guys. Share it with a friend. Thanks for coming back. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Monica. Thanks, guys. And go join the Facebook group if you haven't already. Text me. I'll send you a green tag, and have a great rest of your week. See you guys. Bye.